In the quiet town of Bardstown, Kentucky, a mother of 5 disappeared without a trace on a summer night in 2015. Her car was found abandoned on a desolate highway. Her phone and keys left behind on the passenger seat, but Crystal Rogers was nowhere to be found. What followed was a case so twisted, so full of suspicious circumstances and tragic turns, that it would shake this small community to its core. This is the story of Crystal Rogers, a dedicated mother whose disappearance would expose dark secrets, lead to another murder, and leave a family desperate for answers. This is her story. Crystal Rogers was a 35-year-old mother living 45 miles southeast of Louisville in the heart of Kentucky. To those who knew her, Crystal was defined by one word: devoted. She was devoted to her children, devoted to her family, and devoted to being the best mother she could be. Crystal had 5 children, 4 from her previous marriage to Keith and her youngest son just 2 years old at the time of her disappearance with her current boyfriend Brooks Howell. Despite the end of her marriage, Crystal maintained an amicable relationship with her ex-husband. They understood that their children needed stability, and they worked together to provide it. But it was perhaps her relationship with her youngest son that best captured who Crystal was. Those who knew her would say they were inseparable, attached at the hip. Crystal's sister, Brooke, would later tell investigators that Crystal would never, under any circumstances, leave that little boy behind. It simply wasn't in her nature. Crystal's mother, Ballard, had raised a daughter who was reliable, responsible, and above all, communicative. Crystal always answered her phone. She always checked in. She always let her family know where she was and when she'd be home. It was this predictability, this constant presence in her family's life, that made what happened next so immediately alarming. July 5, 2015 started like any other day for Ballard. She tried calling her daughter Crystal, expecting to hear her voice on the other end of the line, expecting to make plans or simply catch up. But the phone rang and rang. No answer. For most families, a missed phone call might not raise immediate concern. But Sherry knew her daughter. This wasn't like Crystal. She tried again and again. Each unanswered call amplified the worry growing in her chest. 24 hours had now passed since Sherry had last heard from her daughter. With each passing hour, that worry transformed into something darker. Dread. Sherry's maternal instincts were screaming that something was wrong. She began reaching out to Crystal's friends, her extended family, anyone who might have seen or spoken with her recently. The responses she received only deepened her concern. No one had seen Crystal. No one had heard from her. Then Sherry received a call from her other daughter, Brooke, Crystal's younger sister. Brooke had also been trying to reach Crystal without success. She had spoken with Brooks Howell, Crystal's boyfriend, and the father of her youngest child. What Brooks told her was puzzling, to say the least. According to Brooks, he hadn't seen Crystal since Friday night. He claimed that the last time he saw her, she was awake late into the night playing games on her phone as she often did. Brooks said he went to bed, and when he woke up the next morning at 7 a.m., Crystal was gone. He assumed he told Brooke that Crystal had probably gone to visit her cousin's house to celebrate the 4th of July. But this explanation didn't sit right with anyone who knew Crystal. She wouldn't just leave without telling anyone. She wouldn't abandon her 2-year-old son, and she certainly wouldn't disappear without her phone. Sherry's concern had now evolved into full-blown alarm. She did what any mother in her position would do. She went to the police department and filed a missing persons report. While Sherry was at the police station, her son Casey received a phone call that would change everything. A friend had spotted Crystal's car on the side of the road, abandoned on the Bluegrass Parkway. Casey immediately contacted his father, Tommy Ballard, and together they rushed to the location. The sight that greeted them confirmed their worst fears. There was Crystal's car pulled over on the shoulder of the highway with a flat tire, but Crystal was nowhere to be seen. For Casey and Tommy, this discovery was deeply troubling. They knew Crystal. If she had encountered car trouble, she would have called one of them for help. She wouldn't have just tried to fix it herself and disappeared. As they approached the vehicle, examining it more closely, they discovered something that made their blood run cold. Crystal's keys were sitting on the passenger seat. Her phone was there too. Her purse, with all her personal belongings, remained untouched in the car. Crystal Rogers had vanished, but she had left behind everything she would need to contact someone, to get help, to get home. This wasn't a woman who had walked away from her car by choice. Something had happened here. Something terrible, and Casey and Tommy knew it. They immediately contacted the Nelson County Sheriff's Department. When investigators arrived at the scene, they conducted a thorough examination of Crystal's vehicle. On the surface, there were no obvious signs of a struggle. The car wasn't damaged beyond the flat tire. There was no blood, no broken glass, no indication of violence, but something caught the investigators' attention. Something subtle, but significant. The driver's seat was positioned in a way that seemed wrong for someone of Crystal's height. It was adjusted further back than it should have been. This peculiar detail raised an immediate question in the investigators' minds. Had someone else been driving Crystal's car? The police began canvassing the area, hoping to find witnesses who might have seen something on the parkway that night or early morning, but no one came forward. The Bluegrass Parkway, especially in the early hours, wasn't a heavily trafficked road. If something had happened to Crystal here, it had happened without witnesses, or at least without anyone willing to come forward. Desperate for leads, the police turned to the media. They released Crystal's photo and made public appeals for information. They asked anyone who might have seen anything, no matter how insignificant it seemed, to contact them. The response was heartbreaking in its silence. No significant leads emerged. Meanwhile, Crystal's father, Tommy Ballard, wasn't content to wait. He organized search parties, rallying community members to help look for his daughter. Despite the oppressive Kentucky heat and humidity, making the searches physically demanding, many people showed up to help. They combed through fields, searched along roadways, looked everywhere they could think of. But there was one notable absence from these search parties. Brooks Howell, Crystal's boyfriend, and the father of her youngest child. His lack of participation didn't go unnoticed, especially by the police. Here was a man whose girlfriend and the mother of his child had vanished, and he wasn't out there searching for her. It was a red flag that investigators couldn't ignore. Brooks Howell became the focus of police attention, and detectives brought him in for questioning. His story was straightforward, almost rehearsed in its simplicity. According to Brooks, on the evening of July 3rd, Crystal and their 2-year-old son had accompanied him to his family's farm. They arrived in the evening, and Brooks claimed he did some chores around the property, set a fire to burn some building materials, and waited for it to die down before heading home. They left the farm around midnight, Brooks said, and when they got home, he went to bed while Crystal stayed up playing games on her phone, as was her habit. When he woke up at 7 a.m., Brooks claimed he found their son in bed with him, but Crystal was gone. He assumed she had gone out, probably to visit her cousin. It wasn't until later that he began to realize something might be wrong. To those who knew Crystal, this story had a glaring problem. Crystal would never have left her 2-year-old son behind. Not willingly, not under any circumstances. The bond between mother and child was too strong. If Crystal had left that house, something had forced her to, because she would never have walked away from that little boy on her own. The police asked Brooks to take a polygraph test. The results came back inconclusive, neither confirming nor disproving his story. But the police weren't satisfied. They brought him in for a formal interview, and during that interview, several troubling details emerged. Investigators had obtained surveillance footage from the Hull family farm. The video confirmed that Brooks's truck had indeed entered the property that evening, and it showed the vehicle leaving around midnight, just as Brooks had claimed. But there was a problem. The truck had tinted windows so dark that the police couldn't see who was inside the vehicle. Was Crystal in that truck when it left? Was their son, or was Brooks alone? The footage couldn't tell them. Then, There was the matter of a phone call. On his way home from the farm, Brooks had received a call from a business associate named Steve Lawson. The call lasted only 13 seconds, an oddly brief duration. When police asked about it, Brooks had Steve Lawson call in during the interview to explain. Steve Lawson's explanation was that he had called Brooks to get the numbers for a rental property. Brooks, Steve claimed, told him he would have to wait until he got home because Crystal was the one who handled that sort of information. The police found this explanation highly suspicious. If Crystal was with Brooks in the truck at the time of the call, why couldn't Brooks simply hand her the phone? Why would he need to wait until they got home to ask her a question that could be answered immediately? It seemed like a scripted response, an answer prepared in advance to explain away a suspicious phone call. As the interview continued, Brooks received a phone call from his brother, Nick Hall, who happened to be an officer with the Bardstown Police Department. Nick advised Brooks to leave the interrogation room immediately. And just like that, the interview was over. The police were now convinced that Crystal hadn't simply run away and abandoned her car on the Bluegrass Parkway. The evidence suggested something far more sinister had occurred, and they believed it had happened at the Houck family farm. This theory was reinforced when people began calling the police with reports of seeing Brooks' truck and his brother Nick's police car at the Houck family farm after Crystal's disappearance. The timing of these visits raised serious questions. Were the brothers disposing of evidence? Were they trying to cover up what had happened to Crystal? Detectives decided to bring Nick Houck in for questioning. Nick, as a law enforcement officer himself, knew his rights and understood the game being played. When asked if he had anything to do with Crystal's disappearance, he asserted his Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination. He also refused to take a polygraph test. Nick's refusal to cooperate was damning, but it wasn't illegal. The police couldn't force him to answer their questions, and they couldn't compel him to take a lie detector test. But his silence spoke volumes. The investigation also revealed troubling information about Crystal's relationship with Brooks. Her sister Brooke told police that Crystal had been planning to leave Brooks. According to Brooke, Brooks had lied to Crystal and showed little emotional attachment to her. Crystal had confided in her mother, Sherry, that she wanted to end the relationship, but she admitted it wouldn't be easy because Brooks was controlling. Crystal's brother, Casey, had also noticed increasing tension between Brooks and Crystal in the weeks before her disappearance. He had witnessed several heated arguments between them, arguments that suggested their relationship was deteriorating rapidly. A picture was emerging of a relationship in crisis, of a woman planning to leave, and of a controlling partner who might not have been willing to let her go. For over a year, Tommy Ballard refused to give up on finding his daughter. He continued organizing search parties, following up on every lead, and keeping Crystal's case in the public eye. He was determined to find out what happened to his daughter and to bring whoever was responsible to justice. Tommy became so involved in the investigation that many believed he was getting close to uncovering the truth. He was asking the right questions, talking to the right people, and piecing together information that might finally crack the case open. On November 19, 2016, Tommy was preparing for another day of searching. It was hunting season, and Tommy was an experienced hunter. That morning, he and his 11-year-old grandson headed out to their property to check on the wildlife and prepare for the season ahead. What happened next would devastate the Ballard family all over again and add another tragic chapter to this already heartbreaking story. Around 7:30 that morning, Cher Ballard's phone rang. The voice on the other end told her that her husband had been shot. She needed to get to the hospital immediately. Sherry rushed to the scene, her heart pounding, hoping against hope that Tommy would be okay. But when she arrived, she saw the emergency responders surrounding her husband. She watched as they worked desperately to save him. But deep down, Sherry already knew. She could see it in their faces, in the urgency of their movements. Tommy was gone. Tommy Ballard had been shot once in the chest. He was pronounced dead at the scene. Initially, some suggested that Tommy's death might have been a hunting accident, but Sherry was furious at this suggestion. She knew it wasn't an accident. "This is my husband. And it's a murder, and you know it, she told investigators. The investigation into Tommy's death revealed several critical facts. Tommy's weapon had not been fired, ruling out suicide or any accidental self-inflicted wound. The 11-year-old grandson who was with him was also ruled out as a suspect. Eventually, the Kentucky State Police officially announced they were investigating Tommy's death as a homicide. The Ballard family believes Tommy was murdered because he was getting too close to the truth about Crystal's disappearance. They believe that whoever was responsible for harming Crystal wanted Tommy out of the way, fearing that his relentless investigation might finally expose what really happened that July night in 2015. For years, the case remained frustratingly stalled. Crystal was still missing. Tommy's murder remained unsolved. The Ballard family watched as time passed, wondering if they would ever get answers, ever see justice served. But investigations continued behind the scenes. In 2022, the FBI conducted a 5-day investigation into Crystal's disappearance, returning to the Houck family farm to search for evidence. While they didn't reveal publicly what they found, an FBI spokesperson confirmed that all evidence collected would be analyzed at their laboratory in Quantico, Virginia. The Kentucky Attorney General made a significant decision, appointing a special prosecutor to assist in the prosecution of criminal charges related to both Crystal's disappearance and Tommy's murder. Ballard wholeheartedly supported this decision. She recognized that having dedicated prosecutors with fresh perspectives and specialized expertise would be crucial to finally achieving justice for her loved ones. Then, in July 2023, the case finally broke open. A grand jury in Kentucky indicted 32-year-old Joseph Lawson on charges of conspiracy to commit murder and tampering with physical evidence in relation to Crystal's disappearance. 2 months later, the arrest that the community had been waiting for finally happened. Brooks Houck was arrested and charged with murder and tampering with physical evidence in connection with Crystal Rogers' death. The judge set his bond at an astronomical $10 million and ordered him to stay away from Crystal's family. The news was bittersweet for the people of Bardstown and for the Ballard family. While they were devastated to have their worst fears confirmed that Crystal was indeed dead, and not just missing, there was relief in knowing that someone was finally being held accountable. Justice, it seemed, was finally within reach. Brooks Howell made his first court appearance in October 2023, appearing virtually rather than in person. The hearing proved to be explosive, with prosecutors revealing stunning new information. When the judge asked Special Prosecutor Shane Young if they were investigating any other cases linked to Crystal's disappearance, Young confirmed that they were indeed looking into Tommy Ballard's murder, and that they believed the two cases were connected. Then came the bombshell. The special prosecutor announced that they believed they were in possession of the gun that killed Tommy Ballard. They claimed they had purchased the firearm from Nick Houck, Brooks' brother, and a police officer. According to prosecutors, Nick had used a fake name during the sale of the weapon. The caliber of the rifle matched the one used to kill Tommy. Prosecutors stated they were examining 5 criteria, and the gun had already matched 4 of them. If confirmed, this would provide a direct link between the Hull family and Tommy Ballard's murder, supporting the family's long-held belief that Tommy was killed because he was getting too close to the truth about Crystal. The prosecutor also made another shocking allegation that members of the Hull family had secretly recorded grand jury proceedings. According to prosecutors, Brooks's sister, brother, mother, brother-in-law, and mother's boyfriend were all involved in this alleged illegal activity. The implication was clear. The Hull family was coordinating their stories and trying to gain an unfair advantage in the case. Brooks Houck's mother, Rosemary, refused to answer any questions about these allegations. Brooks's attorneys filed motions to disqualify the judge presiding over the case, claiming the judge had been hostile toward their client since 2017 and that the $10 million bond was excessive and unfair. They argued that their client couldn't receive a fair trial under these circumstances. The Kentucky Appeals Court denied these motions. Brooks Houck would remain in jail on his $10 million bond, and the judge would stay on the case. In December 2023, another indictment came down. Stephen Lawson, father of Joseph Lawson, was also indicted on charges of conspiracy to commit murder and tampering with physical evidence. The web of alleged conspiracy was growing wider, suggesting that Crystal's disappearance and death involved multiple people working together. Today, Ballard continues to fight for justice for both her daughter Crystal and her husband Tommy. She has lost two of the people she loved most in the world, and she believes their deaths are connected, that Tommy died because he wouldn't stop searching for Crystal. The community of Bardstown has been forever changed by these events. What happened to Crystal Rogers and subsequently to Tommy Ballard has left scars that won't easily heal. But the community has also shown remarkable strength, rallying around the Ballard family, demanding justice, and refusing to forget. For over 8 years, Ballard has lived with unanswered questions. Where is her daughter's body? What exactly happened that July night in 2015? How many people were involved? Will Tommy's killer ever face justice? The arrests of Brooks Howell, Joseph Lawson, and Stephen Lawson represent significant progress. But for the Ballard family, the journey is far from over. Until Crystal's remains are found and her final resting place can be established, until all those responsible for both her death and Tommy's murder are held fully accountable, there can be no true closure. Crystal Rogers was a devoted mother, a loving daughter, a caring sister. She deserved to watch her children grow up, to grow old, to live the life that was stolen from her on that summer night. Tommy Ballard was a dedicated father who never stopped searching for his daughter, who paid the ultimate price for his love and determination. The disappearance of Crystal Rogers is more than just a true crime case. It's a story about a family's unbreakable love, about a mother's determination to see justice served, and about a community that refused to let these victims be forgotten. As Brooks Howell awaits trial, as the investigation continues, and as prosecutors build their case, one thing remains certain. The Ballard family will not rest until they have the answers they deserve and the justice they've been fighting for since that terrible day in July 2015. Crystal Rogers' story is not yet finished. The final chapter, the chapter where justice is finally fully served, is still being written. And when that day comes, perhaps Ballard and her family can finally find some measure of peace, knowing that Crystal and Tommy can rest and that the truth has finally come to light. This has been the story of Crystal Rogers, a mother who vanished into the night and a family's unending fight for the truth. Thanks for watching, guys. If you enjoyed this video, please like and share it. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and press the bell icon so you can be the first to hear about such real-life stories.